All right, y'all. Welcome back to the show. On the line is Adam Kokesh from, I don't know all of his URLs, but here's one of them, youtube.com/Adam Kokesh.
AdamVersusTheMan.com.
AdamVersusTheMan.com. That's a pretty good one.
That's the only one that counts. AdamVersusTheMan.com.
Adam versus the Man. All right, I knew that was the show. I just didn't know that was the website. Of course, you guys know Adam. He ran for Congress in New Mexico, right? And did his show on RT until basically you were too pro Ron Paul for him, and they got rid of you. Am I right?
Well, I'm not going to speculate as to the exact decision-making process of the Russian government, because that's who I was dealing with. Yeah. But I was canceled for more or less political reasons, as far as I know. And, I want to say that, we ended the deal well, and I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to even have a show on cable television for 4 months. It was a great experience, and I still love RT. Of course, everybody knows I hate the way that it's funded by the Russian government at the barrel of a gun, but if one of the good things that a competing protection racket does is look at the protection racket that we have here, known as the federal government of the United States of America, and sees that it's gotten a bit of an advantage through propaganda, which is a nice euphemistic way of saying lying through their teeth to the American people constantly. The competing protection racket, known as the Russian government, has an interest in sort of undercutting that competitive advantage with counter-propaganda or the truth. And so if the Russian government wants to poke the American government in the eye, so to speak, I'm all about that. I think it's one of the few worthwhile things that governments do these days.
Yeah, well, and it really is a commentary on the way things are in America when you watch pretty much any kind of foreign TV, no matter what their slant is. Like you're saying, it becomes pretty easy for whoever they are, the Russians or the Indonesians or anybody, to undercut the narrative of the American state because it's a lie. It always is, man. No wonder you're versus the man all the time.
No, and it's an important point to make that if you really want to get a better sense of the news, obviously watching cable news, mainstream American corporate media, where they serve a purpose as well. Like, I'm not saying, I don't mean to simply bash the corporate media in the United States and say it's absolutely worthless, because it does serve as the mouthpiece for the government. It's the way that the government communicates with the people. They're not getting Americans to tune in to, White House press briefings because they're boring as heck. So the mainstream media exists in that sense, also to, digest for us the messaging that comes directly from the government. But if you want the truth, you're much more likely to get it from looking at foreign media sources that are foreign government sponsored, where they're trying to undercut that message and reach the American people with a bit of the truth. Of course, they all have their various agendas, so you can do even better going online. And even for looking at foreign media, going online is the best. RT has a great YouTube channel. They put everything that's important up there. And that's, but more importantly, even, if you understand all of that, the most important thing is that you take in everything with a critical eye and a critical mind, and you think about everything that people are telling you, and you don't accept anything at face value. You question everything. And, that's actually RT's slogan, or one of their slogans in their promos is, question more. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a really good thing. They're a great contribution to the media. I'm happy to have been a part of it. But I'm even better. I'm even better off now, having taken the skills that I learned. I'm not a Russian operative anymore. I'm just a Russian-trained operative. And I get to run a YouTube channel for a living. And it's awesome. I really want to thank everybody that supports the show. I run my business like a nonprofit. I ask people to invest in the message by donating, supporting the show, and going to AdamVersusTheMan.com to do that, because I really think this is the future of independent media, and I'm glad that enough people have agreed with me that it's possible for me to do this full-time for a living now.
Yeah, well, that's great. I've always been kind of of two minds about doing RT, and of course at antiwar.com, they do interviews with usually John Glazer, but I've been on there a few times and that kind of thing. And, it is the Russian government and whatever, but then again, everybody knows that. It's not like it's a secret or something, and it's an opportunity to get your point of view across. And like I've done Russian TV about Iran's nuclear program, but I never did Iranian TV about Iran's nuclear program. I don't want to take, I never talked about why America's being unfair to Russia on RT. I always was talking just about, third-dairy issues to, relations between the two countries and whatever. And I think as long as everybody knows it's the Russian government, which they do, then fair's fair and you get to say what you can. And same thing for going on press TV in Iran. And you know you can't talk about the Badr Brigade without getting edited, but that's just the way it is.
Right. Well, people tell me, like, oh, you must be so much more free now that you can speak on the internet and say whatever you want. And it's like, except for getting to cuss, I really had full creative control of my show on RT, and I'm really grateful for that as well. But in the new format, I'm more flexible with the formatting on a day-to-day basis. Like, I was doing studio shows that looked like my RT show for a while, and then ended up doing more man-on-the-street stuff. I've been doing a lot of interviews at Occupy DC. I did some at Occupy Wall Street. You know, I get to sit in my studio and rant when I feel like it. If I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like doing anything, I can sleep in. But, you know, I can go out and make videos that I know are my greatest contribution to the cause of liberty every single day, as opposed to, you know, having to fill 2 14-minute blocks or you know, meet the standards of a broadcast from a studio and deal with all that and the administration, the bureaucracy. And when the show got canceled, there were a lot of people saying, oh, man, you got to pitch this thing to Spike or to G4. You know, if they had a political show, yours would be perfect. And I was just thinking, like, if I got the same offer and the same contract, like, I wasn't making very good money with RT. It was okay. Like, I don't mean to complain. It was a great opportunity. I'm grateful to have walked away with enough money to start me off on the next step here. You know, but it wasn't like enough to meet my long-term financial goals. And I thought, you know, if I can do this instead, you know, if someone offered me the same contract right now to do a regular cable broadcast TV show, I'd rather be doing what I'm doing now and being able to work online exclusively and promote the message that way. It's an incredible opportunity, and I really think this is the future of media, or part of the future of media, in the sense that cable and that model of media conglomerate power isn't going to go away, but it's going to be reduced by this competition to a much smaller role, and I'm much happier in the role that I'm in now.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. Again, it's adamversustheman.com, and there's, of course, all the links to the YouTube channel and everything else. And
yep.
And now, you know, they've been getting picked up and passed around. I sure see them on Facebook a lot, your different YouTubes. And Ron Paul Flicks, which I was mentioning at the top of the interview here, they're running today a couple of pitches by you about Ron Paul, how to make a speech for Paul in Iowa or anywhere else, and now is the time for Ron Paul. So I guess we're pretty much up on top of this break here. But when we get back, I want to ask you, I guess, to address those in the opposite order there. First of all, why
Sure.
it is that Ron Paul's candidacy is such a big deal to you, and then secondly, you know, there are a lot of people who've been asking for a long time, yeah, but what can I do? And you got a pretty good answer to that question here.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how to make a speech for Ron Paul in Iowa or anywhere else, and that's at adamversustheman.com and at ronpaulflix.com today. And so we'll be back on the other side of this break with more from Adam Kokesh after this. I'm such a terrible person. All I can accentuate is the negative. Everywhere I look, I see liberals trying to pretend, see, Ron Paul is too just like every other politician, because they just can't stand the fact that there's never been a liberal congressman in American history with the backbone and integrity and intelligence of Ron Paul. Not by a million billion miles. Not even Thomas Jefferson, the founder of the Democratic Party. And they're so beside themselves with grief at how shown up they are, at what conservatives they are in the face of real classical liberalism. All they can do is just boo-hoo and cry like a bunch of sissies at the National Review. It's really sad to say, but I don't know. I bet you that Adam Kokesh has something positive to say about the Ron Paul campaign right now. Bail me out here, Adam.
Yeah, I know. This whole racism charge has raised a lot of angst in the libertarian movement. So I think it's really important to offer some translations for people, because it's hard to understand when someone comes out and says, Ron Paul is a racist. What they're really saying is, I don't really like freedom anyway. What they're really saying is, but if Ron Paul wins, then Obama will lose, and I'll lose my welfare check. Or if Ron Paul wins, then Obama will lose, and I'll lose my cushy government job groping children at TSA checkpoints. Or if Ron Paul wins, then Obama will lose, and I'll lose that warm, squishy feeling I get from knowing that I'm not a racist because I support our black president, which is obviously a form of racism disguised under political correctness. But it's all a bunch of crap. And to be totally, addressing the point squarely about the charge of Ron Paul in the newsletters, I will say this, and this is Ron Paul's singular weakness, and it's important to acknowledge and put it in perspective, because as he admitted himself when he was on Cavuto last week, it was negligence, and I agree with him. It was, but it was almost the slightest insignificant transgression of negligence when you think back in his 30 years of publishing so many different things, the newsletter, so many books and articles, so many different things under his name, some that he wrote himself, most of which he did not write but that he supported and published, to have missed a few sentences. I mean, do you really want to say that in comparison to that, it wasn't at all negligent?
Well, and even the worst of it doesn't even have the N-word in there a single time, not once. That's how bad it isn't.
Right, and to be, if you want to get into that, it's almost hard to say that some of the things in and of themselves were racist, but maybe more accurately, racially insensitive. And in that sense,
yeah, they were jerky. They were the kinds of things that would cause hurt feelings. But there's no proposals that anything bad be done to anyone or anything.
Right. And Ron Paul's philosophy, our philosophy of voluntarism, is absolutely opposed to racism as an idea, because it inherently is a collectivist concept that lumps people together by group, by some genetic traits, by some physical characteristics of some form. And we believe in every human being having certain inalienable rights, every human being's rights being sacred, and that human life being of value, no matter what their race is, no matter what any of those other qualifications or classifications or various forms of collectivism would be. So that just makes it extra ironic that what Ron Paul is being accused of as the America's foremost champion of individual rights, what he is being accused of is a form of collectivism. I mean, of all things. But do you really want to say, I mean, because then you have to put it in context and compare it to the other candidates, because the shred of legitimacy to this is a ding on Ron Paul's leadership or organizational abilities. But if you're asking someone to be a publisher for 30 years and know every single sentence that's ever published under his name, you're asking for Jesus Christ. You're asking for something that is superhuman. And as Ron Paul has said, hey, guess what? Surprise. He's not perfect. But
he also said, too, hey, why don't you look at all the things that I said, every conference I've been to, every speech I've given, every article I've written for 40 years, and show me where once you can find anything like that. And, of course, he knows that we could never find anything like that because, as we can see, you can watch a YouTube from 1976 if you feel like it in an instant with the click of your fingers. And there he is attacking the Congress and attacking the Federal Reserve, etc. And then what? He's attacking their ideas. He never even attacks the personalities of the worst and most powerful people.
All right, Scott.
He never is mean, and he never shoots down at the weak and the powerless.
All right, Scott. You know what, though? All of this, I'm working on this video right now. It's a little skit where I've got someone saying these lines like, hey, if Ron Paul wins, then Obama will lose, and I'll lose my welfare. So that's going to be out later tonight. You'll see that at AdamVersusTheMan.com.
Well, is that going to be a Lockheed executive who's saying I'm going to lose my welfare check?
Oh, yeah, exactly. My cushy government contracting job.
Yeah, I've been working at Citigroup lately for like 4 hours a day, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose my bailout check.
Yeah, we got to get past this, man, and I'm really hoping that this video is sort of the conversation ender on this one, that people can share it with others and say, oh, you think Ron Paul's a racist? Well, let me translate that for you and show you what that really means and who that's really coming from. But we're angry. We're pissed off. Everybody out there who's a libertarian, even if you're not a Ron Paul supporter, should be pissed off that the individualist, the champion of liberty, being slammed for being collectivist. But the answer, not to get mad, but to get even. And the way we get even is by staying on message and getting back on track and doing what we got to do to get Ron Paul elected, because we are Ron Paul's greatest asset. We who care, we who are willing to stand up for what we believe in, we who are willing to take action for that. And so that's why I did the video I did last week called How to Give a Speech in Iowa for Ron Paul or anywhere else. And I just want to say that if you can get up to Iowa, and I know this is like, holy crap, I'm going to just get in my car, because I assume most libertarians don't like being groped at the airport and drive whenever possible. Unfortunately for us, Iowa is somewhat centrally located. I'll be driving from the D.C. area, which is about 18 hours, at least according to the Google Maps. And, like, holy crap, I'm going to drop what I'm doing, although, fortunately for me, it's part of what I'm doing. I get to go make videos while I'm there. But I'm going to get out of my routine here. I'm going to just get in my car. I grabbed a buddy so we could split the driving a little bit, and we're going to drive to Iowa just to get out and support Ron Paul. And this is what's so exciting with the caucuses. And I'm sorry I'm not an expert on the details and the mechanics of this, but the way this works is that there are, what is it, about 1,500, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 caucuses. It's at a very local level in Iowa, and people come together in various public meeting places or in homes sometimes even, and are able to go in and nominate someone that caucus is going to support. So what happens is anybody, you don't have to be a resident of Iowa or a registered Republican. Now, you have to be a resident in that specific area. I guess it's a precinct, I think is how they do it, in Iowa to participate in the voting part of the caucus. But you don't have to even be an American citizen to say, is anybody here willing to speak for Ron Paul, and stand up and say, I'd like to take my 2 minutes and give a speech for Ron Paul. And so there's an incredible opportunity in this, because at most of these caucuses, most of the campaigns aren't even going to have a single representative. This is the kind of thing where the grassroots, on-the-ground organization really counts. And when people say on the mainstream news, hey, Ron Paul's got these crazy supporters, they're really enthusiastic, hey, it's time to live up to that. It's not enough to come to the conclusion that, well, the newspaper or the newsman said it, so I guess we're already there. Everything's cool. No, you got to get out to Iowa if you can. You got to start making phone calls if you can, if you're good at that. If you like talking to people, it's really easy. There are all sorts of ways online that you can get plugged in. Of course, RonPaul2012.com. There's a StumpForRonPaul.com. That's what inspired this. I got to judge a speech contest for people that were delivering 2-minute speeches on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I saw a couple of those. Hey, by the way, let me interrupt you here for just a second to try to put you back on the point that you were just making there about how the proverbial you can do this, and even if you're nervous and even if you don't know how and whatever, there are ways that you can have a good telemarketing script for making phone calls, sample speeches that you could practice, just dress nice and be polite, and you, too, can do what Adam is talking about here, right?
Right, and there's one thing that I left out in the video, which was even if you can't give a speech, if you can read and you can speak at an audible volume, you can go and do this. You can get someone else to write a 2-minute speech. You can raise your hand and say, I'd like to do this, and get out there and do it. But that's why I put this video together. It's got a lot of good pointers. But I just want to, there was another thing in there, and I did some samples of what we're up against with the competition. Can you imagine what a grassroots supporter of Mitt Romney giving a 2-minute speech is going to sound like? Can you imagine what a Gingrich supporter is going to get up there and say? He believes in traditional marriage so much he did it 3 times. I mean, seriously, Mitt Romney, he's really conservative because he's against mandated health care programs.
Yeah, he no longer wants to take your guns. Level. He changed his mind about taking your guns, guys.
Anymore. What are the 2-minute speeches that people are going to be giving for these schmucks that we're up against? I mean, come on. It's almost ludicrous how easy this is going to be to win people over when it's, hey, you're up against the Senate, you're up against people just like yourself, except that they've made the dumb mistake of not questioning their authority in their lives, of not questioning the government in any way, of not questioning the conservative establishment, and they go, oh, well, he looks like a good, serious conservative, and Fox said he was a good guy, so I better get out there and be involved in politics. I mean, the people that go out there to support these people are not like Ron Paul supporters. They're going out there because they go, oh, I think I better get involved. Well, who should I support now? As opposed to saying, holy crap, something is wrong with this country, and I'm going to do something about it, and I've done the research, and I've done my homework, and I know who Ron Paul is, and I know what he stands for, and I know why this is important, because you know what? As much as and I'm a voluntarist. I believe in progressing to a voluntary society the same way that Ron Paul does. And Ron Paul would tell you, voting is not going to fix this. But if it gets a guy like Ron Paul elected and it stops one war from happening, if it saves one life from being destroyed by government, if it changes policy in any way that prevents the kind of suffering that we see every single day from government, this is a unique opportunity because never before in human history has there been a candidate like Ron Paul. And you know what? We might have another chance. You know, there's going to be Rand Paul in 2016 if Ron Paul loses. There's going to be Gary Johnson. There's going to be R.J. Harris and Justin Amash and so many eager voices going up to fill his shoes, but they're just too big to fill. And it might be another generation or two before we have the opportunity to elect a libertarian president who's going to start dismantling this monstrosity of the federal government from the top down. This is an opportunity not to be passed up. You're not going to want to tell your grandchildren how you watched everybody else in the freedom movement get Ron Paul elected, or how he was so close and he was off by one vote in one primary state, and you could have been the one that drove to Iowa and got that one more caucus vote in his favor. You don't want to be in that position. This is the chance. And I don't say, hey, I don't say this very often because I really do believe that course of human history to a voluntary society is inevitable. But this is an incredible opportunity that we really do deserve to give some sense of urgency to in getting support for Ron Paul, because the opportunity to prevent so much human suffering is just too much to pass up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's inevitable as long as as people have access to the ideas. But we sure can backslide, and I'm with you. I don't think that a thing that Adam just said, y'all, is, amounts to hyperbole. I think that's right. I think this is the best chance the American people have had in decades and decades and probably ever to elect a real individualist to the president, and right at a time when the dollar is broke, when the military's overextended, when the Bill of Rights is on its last legs, right when we need him the most. Here's a guy who just wants to come in, not riding on a white horse to remake society. He just wants to come in and veto a bunch of things for a change. That's all. Just sit there with his veto pen. We can do this, man. And it's important enough. It has to be done.
He's to pardon all nonviolent offenders in federal prison. You are literally voting for the freedom of people who have been victimized by the drug war. You are literally voting to save the lives of the children who are going to die in the next war that Obama or Romney would start. You are literally going out to fight for the freedom of your children, because if we don't do this now, if we don't get Ron Paul elected, and I don't think it's going to happen, honestly, I think it's still most likely that Romney's going to be our next president. But Ron Paul's got a serious chance, 10, 20%, and that's enough to say, I'm going to throw some weight behind him right now. I'm going to get behind him. I'm going to do what I can to make this happen, because if we don't, and I'm saying, still, most likely we won't. Most likely, this statism mentality, this paradigm is going to continue for a little while longer, and it's a fight your children are going to have to deal with after they see their kids or their friends go off and die in another BS war. It's going to be their fight, but I think we can make a better world for our children. We can take advantage of this opportunity now.
Yeah. When I went to the very first, the first one I went to anyway, Ron Paul meetup group here in Austin back in 2007, the guy said, we're here to make sure that Ron Paul wins this thing. And I remember thinking, man, come on. I mean, we're going to make this the best speaking tour on behalf of liberty that we can, and it's going to be great. But we're going to get Ron Paul elected? Yeah. But this time around, it's different. This time around, I don't just roll my eyes at that. This time around, I'm a realist, and I'm a pessimist even. I pretty much come down where you do on this, that come on. There is a lot of forces arrayed against my man here. On the other hand, he really does have a chance. He's got the credibility built up of 4 years of TV interviews between these presidential campaigns. People remember him now. They know him now. And he was right about all those 15 things that he said we shouldn't do that we did anyway, huh? And I think that, you're right. You're also right about Mitt Romney is clearly the guy to beat, but a lot of things can happen in politics, and a lot of people just don't like Mitt Romney. Hell, people like Newt Gingrich better than Mitt Romney somehow. I mean, so if for no other reason than his competition, Ron Paul does have a real shot this time. I'm sorry for talking all over your interview. I'm just trying to reinforce your point and agree with you that, like, that Dave, you out there, Joe, you could help tip the balance in Iowa on this one. Do like Adam says. Go to what now? RonPaul2012.com. How do people get involved in this Iowa thing, Adam?
StumpForRonPaul.com is another good website, but RonPaul2012.com has the links.
And you said you're on your way there. You're doing this. You're going to Iowa to give speeches.
I'm eagerly awaiting. I think I just got an email last night. Of course, or a couple days ago. I've been busy for Christmas, but I got an email from the. I signed up. I think it was StumpForRonPaul.com. I'll have the link up on my site. It's in the video. How to give a speech for Ron Paul in Iowa or anywhere else. But what's most likely going to happen? I mean, let's to be realistic or even pessimistic for a minute. What's most likely to happen here is that if Ron Paul wins Iowa or New Hampshire, or even does well, the party establishment is going to say, "Oh crap, this guy might win this thing, and we can't have that because there go all of our sponsors for right statism and militarism and the police state and all of that, and our business model is just shot to hell." So what we're going to do is we're going to have to make everybody get along and just fold and get behind Romney or I think either Romney or Huntsman, actually. I don't think Gingrich is going to last, especially with the news today that he couldn't get enough signatures to get on the ballot in Virginia, for Christ's sakes. The guy this is like harkening back to the start of his campaign being a joke. But Romney has still been diligent. He's been in it to win it from the beginning. And, like, the reason a guy like Santorum is still in the race, as much as he looks uncomfortable every time he opens his mouth, he is there because if he can just hold on to 5% of the vote, that's worth exchanging his endorsement for a cabinet position in the Romney administration. And this is how it happens. I mean, look at 2008. Everybody dropped and got behind John McCain, and they endorsed him in exchange for promises from him that, hey, if he gets elected, they're going to get this payoff or that payoff. Ron Paul doesn't play those games. Ron Paul's not going to be buying people off. So what we have to hope for here is that the Republican Party is going to remain split. And, in fact, the surge of Newt Gingrich and the fact that we have a crowded field of, credible candidates, at least, is a really good thing for Ron Paul. The longer they stay split, the more that Ron Paul can build that base and start racking up early primary votes and force the voters in the mid and later primary states or mid-early primary states to look at why he's winning and actually consider his message. But at that point, they still have to get it. We still have to reach them. So don't think it's over when we win Iowa and New Hampshire. Because I think Ron Paul, this is where I'm really optimistic. I think Ron Paul's going to win Iowa. I think because of his ground game and the way that he's polling, in fact, I would put money on it right now, Ron Paul will win Iowa. I'm not ready to call New Hampshire for him, but it's going to be close. Now, after that, I have no idea, because that's when it's going to get really, really ugly. That's when you're going to see two things. You're going to see the Republican Party establishment start to congeal into a mass of slimy neocon nationalism, police state, militaristic crap like they did last time around McCain, and you're going to see more attacks on Ron Paul. Now, you didn't see that as much in 2008 because he wasn't a threat then. But now that he's a threat, you're going to see that, and we have to be ready for it. You have to this is a debate that's going to happen on the Internet. It's going to happen at the dinner table. It's going to happen over the phones from activists who support Ron Paul, knowing their stuff, knowing their shtick, knowing their info, knowing the message, and being able to call people in those early primary states, being able to reach them with the message. So Iowa, New Hampshire, that's the warm-up. That's Ron Paul's shot across the bow to the establishment. But at that point, they're totally capable of coming together and swatting him away like he's nothing. But the reason that he's even in this position, and I just have to emphasize this for people right now who are listening going, oh, can I drive to Iowa? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to take a day off work. I might lose a little pay. Oh, I'd be away from my kids or my dog or my whatever, Ron Paul has been doing this for decades, and he has put up with so much crap day after day after day. And not only did he run in 2008 and subject himself to all of the what you subject yourself to when you run for office, and I would know. I've been there. I ran for Congress, and I can tell you, I'm not looking forward to doing it again. In fact, I'm not planning on it. But to run for president, to subject yourself to that kind of long cycle, and he didn't bow out when he could have. He stayed in to the bitter end so that he could have a counter convention, so he could build the momentum, so he could create Campaign for Liberty and all of the established momentum that he's got that's carried him to this point because he has been consistent and done this for decades. And I was asked in an interview recently, what is Ron Paul's best quality? And I said, personally, it's his humility because that's what makes him the most effective messenger. But you know what? I had to think about that. And I don't think that's it. I think it's his patience and his diligence because I get sick of repeating myself over and over again. I got sick of it when I was running for office. I got sick of it as an anti-war activist, even having to say the same thing over and over again. He's been doing it for over 30 years. The same message, the same core philosophy, the same ideas. And yeah, it's new issues every day, but oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Right all along.
That this man has put in.
Yeah, it's not that he's some stubborn old guy who's still wrong about everything and refuses to change. It's that he's the only one who's been right, the voice in the wilderness this whole time up there. 1 versus 334 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's time to vindicate Ron Paul.
Yep. All right, hey, listen, man, we're already way over time here, but I really appreciate your time. And all your efforts along these lines. I'm in complete agreement with you about how important this is, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing, Adam.
Right, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to spread this message and my little part of it and help motivate people to get out and hopefully set somewhat of an example. And I hope my video is helpful. And if you're looking for how to give a speech, and if you're looking for how to give a speech at a public event in any sense, or even if you have 2 minutes at the dinner table and you want to know how to tell people about Ron Paul, you can't go wrong with the basic tips in this video. You know, be prepared, have fun, be relaxed, calm, confident, know that you are the message, connect with your audience, and I explain all of that and give you some examples. So I hope it's of value to your audience. AdamVersusTheMan.com. Check it out. Sign up for the email list. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we're going to keep fighting for freedom one way or another.
Cool. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.